Good afternoon and welcome to the CLEAR webinar series. I am Dave Dixon. I'm coming to you from the Middlesex County Extension Center in Haddam, Connecticut. And we are joined by our speakers today who are actually on the main campus in Storrs. Our presentation today is Opportunities for Brownfield Redevelopment in Connecticut. And our presenters are Dr. Maria Chrysikou, an associate professor in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering here at UConn, and also the director of the Connecticut Brownfields Initiative, as well as Binu Shandy, who is the deputy director of the Office of Brownfield Remediation and Development in the Department of Economic and Community Development. Before I turn it over to Maria and Binu, just have some preliminary stuff to get you used to this webinar format in case you're new. This is the 7th presentation in our 2018 CLEAR webinar series. As you can see, all of those titles that are grayed out on your screen are our past webinars from this year. Those are all recorded and available on our website, clear.uconn.edu. And the presentation today is Brownfield Redevelopment Opportunities in Connecticut. So hopefully that's the one you intended to sign in for. And finally, for those of you who are unfamiliar with CLEAR, we are the Center for Land Use Education and Research here at UConn. We are a collaboration between the Department of Extension, the Department of Natural Resources and Environment, both of which are in the College of Ag, Health, and Natural Resources, and the Connecticut Sea Grant Program. We have 4 main areas that we work in: water, land use and climate resiliency, geospatial tools and training, and conservation and STEM education, our newest area. But all of those 4 areas are used to fulfill our mission, which is basically to serve as a resource to communities, to help them make better land use decisions, provide for healthier natural resources and more resilient communities all the way around. So with that, I will finally turn it over to Maria and Binu.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and it's a pleasure to present to you some opportunities and initiatives that we have here out of the University of Connecticut that also DECD has for brownfield development in Connecticut. And we'll provide a short overview of state and federal funding programs for the assessment and cleanup of brownfield sites. And then Binu will provide some details on the DECD grants, and then I will provide also some details on the EPA assessment grants. And these are tied to the Municipal Assistance Program, which is a part of the Connecticut's Brownfields Initiative, and it's a new initiative that we are starting right now, and that will provide communities with an opportunity to prepare and submit grant proposals. And so we will start with the first question on the poll, which is whether you or your institution has ever applied for a brownfield grant. So we kind of have an idea, you know, of the attendees and how much experience you have with that field.
Okay, so I will read them to you. So basically the majority of folks answered no. 52% answered no, they have not applied for a brownfield grant. 35% said yes, they've applied for both. 10% said yes, an EPA grant, and 3% said yes, a DECD grant.
Okay, so you know, for those of you who have not applied for any grant before, we will be providing an overview of what the grants are for and what they can do for you. And for those of you who are familiar with the process, we will tell you about how we can support resubmissions or preparation of new proposals. And so with that, I will turn it over to Binu, who will provide an overview of the state and DECD Brownfield program and related grants.
So good afternoon, everyone. This is my first webinar presenting experience, so please bear with me. Other than Maria and Nefeli in the room, I don't have anyone else to smile to, but I'll try my best. I'd like to first of all thank Professor Maria for inviting me to talk about state resources and programs available to facilitate brownfield redevelopment. DECD is an active partner and is happy to be supportive of UConn's CBI program. I strongly believe that the program will be vital and a much needed resource for Connecticut's municipalities. So before I delve into our programs and resources, I'd like to highlight the brownfield funding provided to date under Governor Malloy's leadership. We have invested over $225 million, covering 170 projects in 72 municipalities, impacted over 2,200 acres, created over 15,000 plus construction jobs and 3,000 plus permanent jobs. So brownfield redevelopment has been one of Governor Malloy's major initiatives since he took office. So the next slide shows the statewide impact of our office's brownfield programs. Connecticut's brownfield program has made investments in more than 70 of Connecticut's cities and towns in every corner of the state. So the brownfields are not only concentrated in urban areas, they are also in smaller rural municipalities. But brownfield redevelopment is much more complicated and expensive compared to a greenfield redevelopment because of the contamination and related environmental cleanup laws. And that is where UConn CBI program can help municipalities, especially the ones who may not have the experience or the expertise. The large amount of state funding already spent on brownfields redevelopment has not reduced the demands for requests or applications for brownfield grants or loans. So a technical resource like the one being offered by the CBI program will be very valuable for brownfield redevelopment in the state. The next slide highlights DCD's suite of tools. One of our main funding program is the Municipal Grant Program, which I'll cover in detail in the next slide. The next financial resource that we offer is the low-rate interest loan program called the Targeted Brownfield Development Loan Program for loans up to $4 million. Eligible entities who can apply to this program include potential brownfield purchasers, developers or owners, as well as municipalities and their entities. We also have a planning program up to $200,000 for planning, assessment, and pre-development activities, targeting multiple brownfields in a neighborhood or community. Other than these three main funding programs, we also have technical or non-funding programs that are useful tools for brownfield remediation. First, we have the Liability Relief Program. These have recently become very popular, and we have been approached by a number of clients to get into one of these programs. The program provides third-party relief, and they limit the liability of non-responsible owners or prospective purchasers who make a good faith effort to remediate and redevelop brownfields. So DCD works in close collaboration with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, DEEP, on the liability relief programs. I also want to briefly talk about our new land bank program. Recent legislation has enabled the creation of a non-stock corporation that can acquire, remediate, and sell brownfields on behalf of municipalities. These land banks can also help educate stakeholders on best practices for redeveloping brownfields. Land banks are eligible for brownfield grants and loans. They must be certified by the Commissioner of DCD. We have one land bank created to date, and it's called the Connecticut Brownfield Land Bank, Inc., and based in Essex. Now, getting back to the municipal grant program, all the municipal and municipal entities can apply for loans. They usually apply to the grant program for obvious reasons. Grants under this program are made periodically on a competitive basis based on a request for application published on our office's website, which is ctbrownfields.gov. The last round was round 11, and it was announced in November of last year. We are hoping to release a request for applications for the next round, that is round 12, sometime in the fall of this year. The maximum grant amount available under this program for a particular project as per statute is $4 million. However, this amount can change for any round depending on funding availability. The Office of Brownfields decides the maximum amount that an interested applicant can apply for in a particular round. For example, in round 11, applicants could apply for up to $2 million for a remediation project and up to $200,000 for an assessment project. OBRD, that's the Office of Brownfields, also usually specifies whether the competitive rounds are open to only assessment, remediation of both types of projects. We also decide and announce what is the maximum amount available to be given out or awarded in any particular round. As already mentioned, there's a high demand for state brownfield grants and loans, and therefore the applications we receive are also highly competitive. So we have established objective scoring or rating and ranking criteria, which is also usually published along with the request for applications for any particular round. Some of the criteria for awarding grant funding to a project include the economic development impact and the projected tax revenues associated with returning the brownfield site in question to productive use. Next is the public health and environmental benefits of the project. We also look at how the project is consistent with the state plan of conservation development, how the project supports other state policies, mainly transit-oriented development, historic preservation, affordable housing, open space conservation, and renewable energy. The one other aspect we look for in the applications is the but-for rationale. That is where you as an applicant can demonstrate that but for the state financial assistance in the project, the project would not proceed. Now, the relative economic condition of the municipality in which the brownfield is located is also assessed. We analyze the feasibility of redevelopment, the estimated cost of assessing and remediating the brownfield, and the level of complication of the issues. Basically, we are looking at readiness to use our funds. One other criteria that can usually tilt the scoring to the positive side, and that most often is more of a tilt, is the presence of an interested developer in the redevelopment project. Now, DCD funding can be used for a variety of uses. It can be used for soil, groundwater, infrastructure investigation activities, assessment studies, planning, engineering, and environmental consulting, remediation, abatement, hazardous materials or waste disposal, long-term groundwater or natural attenuation, other forms of institutional controls, building and structural issues including demolition, asbestos abatement, PCB removal, contaminated wood or paint removal, or other infrastructure remedial activities. So if you can see, our funds are very flexible. Since Professor Maria will be discussing UConn's Municipal Assistance Program, I'm going to discuss briefly the main sections of a DCD application and what constitutes a good application of DCD funds. We usually look for a good project description. What are the brownfield funds being requested for, and what is the proposed redevelopment? Details about the financing are always very helpful. A project budget with estimated costs, including non-state sources of funds that will be contributed to the project, and of course, a project timeline. Then we also look for the feasibility of redevelopment. As I mentioned before, basically, do you have all your ducks in a row? Something else we are particular about is the nature of ownership. If the applicant is not the owner, does the applicant have access rights to perform brownfield assessment or remediation work that the funds are being sought for? Then we look for an explanation of the expected benefits and positive attributes of the project. The economic development impact, social and community impact. We give you a chance to talk about the but-for rationale, why DCD funding is absolutely necessary, will the DCD grant address the funding gap, etc. Then we also look at the purpose and need. Why is the project important to the community, the municipality, the region, and the state? We also look for consistency with state policies. And one other thing is we look if the application has local approvals. The application also asks for information concerning the financial and technical capacity of the applicant and the project team to execute the proposed project. We also try to assess what steps have been taken already, what is the pre-development activity to date, is the project shovel ready, is the project ready to expend the DCD funds once the contract is executed. Most importantly, The application should include the environmental condition and status of assessment and remedial activities. So there are questions in the application regarding this particular aspect. Are there DEEP or EPA enforcement actions on the project site? Is the site in a state or federal cleanup program? Who are the responsible parties? Is the timeline of environmental conditions known? What are the potential contaminants? What are the environmental studies conducted to date? What are the planned remediation activities, etc.? So in summary, we are looking for a complete story of your brownfield site and project. What is the history and the background of the contamination? Do you have a plan in mind to handle the redevelopment? And what role will DCD funding play in the whole picture? Now I will pass on the mic to Professor Maria, and she can explain how her program can help you provide to us that winning application for our municipal brownfield grant.
Thank you, Binu. First, I will just give you like an overview of the whole menu of options that you have for EPA brownfield grants under the BUILD Act. And so you have in this slide, you see the grants that are already existing. So you have assessment grants that you can use to conduct phase 1 or 2 investigations. And then you have the revolving loan funds, cleanup, area-wide planning, workforce development. I will not go into the details of all of these. The slides will be available to you so you can look at them later. The only thing that I want to highlight is that under the new, the 2018 BUILD Act, there will be 2 new types of grants from the EPA. One will be a multi-purpose grant where you don't have to choose whether you're going to do only assessment or planning or remediation, but you can put all of them in one grant that will give you the flexibility to incorporate different activities in your grant, from creating an inventory of brownfield sites all the way to conducting remediation activities for one particular site. So that is one new grant that will come out, in the new solicitation for FY 2019. The other new grant that will come out will be the Small Communities Grant that will be $20,000 for community, and that will specifically target training, technical assistance, and research with respect to what are the needs of the community, what are brownfields are there, and essentially help the communities collect enough information to be able to put together grant applications. So for the remaining of the presentation, I will focus more on the EPA assessment grants. So what you see here is what grants Connecticut has received, so various municipalities and entities have received in the last 10 years. You see that the majority of the grants came from cleanup grants, and even though we have done fairly well, if you see these broken down over time, you will see that in the last 2 years, there haven't been any assessment grants for Connecticut. And part of the reason for that is that EPA grant applications are quite involved. And I will show you the details of what they entail and explain to you where will we come in and help. So we anticipate that EPA will issue the FY19 assessment grant guidelines in fall 2018, and a potential submission deadline is going to be around mid-November, early December of 2018. So our municipal assistance program is targeting this this window that will be that we expect to be announced shortly. So there are 3 types of assessment grants. The first type is the community-wide. Essentially, this type of grant allows you to look at sites where you have no prior knowledge of what is going on. So most of these community-wide grants have as a target to create a brownfields inventory across a municipality, and then fund approximately 4 or 5 phase 1 and several phase 2 investigations. So this is really a quite flexible type of grant that allows you to get assessment and conduct assessments for several different sites. The site-specific grants are what they are called, site-specific. So it allows you to go more into depth and conduct more detailed phase 2 and phase 3 investigations for one particular site. The caveat of this is that you need to know a lot more about the site, and you need to provide a lot more detailed information about the site characteristics, what you plan to do with it, and so on. And so they're more complicated proposals. Finally, the coalition grant is essentially the same as a community-wide grant, but it's larger, so you can apply for up to 600,000, and it essentially does the same thing but across a bigger area. So 3 or more eligible entities can form a coalition where you can conduct a multitude of phase 1 and phase 2 investigation across a larger area that covers how should I say this, the administrative authority of these entities. So for example, this could be like a regional planning agency and a town. It could be 2 regional planning agencies where they're planning to look at multiple municipalities across their territory. So for our municipal assistance program, we are looking at supporting mostly community-wide programs and coalition programs if we find that there are entities that actually make sense to put together in one proposal. So why do we do that? There's 2 reasons why we chose the community-wide assessment grants. The first reason is that they are more flexible to write because you don't need as much site-specific information up front. The second reason is that when you look at the assessment grants that were given out in FY 2018 for EPA Region 1, you see that all of them were community-wide assessment grants. So there are approximately 12 or 13 grants in this list that you see here. So you can notice 2 things. One is that they are community-wide grants, and most of them are submitted by regional planning commissions and councils of government, and you also see that none of them was awarded to Connecticut. And so it is our objective and our mission to support Connecticut entities to prepare and submit more of these grants so that we can be competitive in our region. So I'll give you 2 examples of these grants and what the entities are planning to do with them. So the first example is from the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission. So they actually applied and received 2 grants, so you can combine money for hazardous waste sites and money for petroleum sites. So they received $300,000 in total. And with that, they are planning to conduct 6 phase 1 and 4 phase 2 environmental site assessments. And what is nice about this is that you do not have to specify what the sites are going to be up front. You just have to demonstrate that you have a general idea of sites across your community, and that you will have a process for identifying and selecting those sites within the grant proposal. And so for the Regional Planning Commission, they stipulated that they will focus on the original industrial call of Worcester County, and so within their area, they focus on one region that has specific needs. You can also see that an important part is to conduct community outreach activities, and this is a central element of all these assessment grants. The second example shows you what a single municipality plans to do with an assessment grant. So this is the city of Somerville in Massachusetts. They also got a combined hazardous waste and petroleum grant. And they are also doing a similar thing in terms of conducting 4 phase 1 and 5 phase 2 environmental site assessments, and also developing reuse plans. They will also create an inventory and a prioritization scheme for sites and support community outreach. In this city is targeting Eastern Somerville, and in their proposal, in all of these proposals, you essentially have to create a narrative for why a particular section of a region or a town is in need and will benefit from these wider assessment grants. So as you can see, and I could see you more examples, but show you more examples, but they're all similar. So all these proposals have similar elements in terms of the assessment plans, the inventory, the community outreach, the reuse plans. So what's the critical element in having a winning proposal is to weave the narrative and show the community need. And this is where we are hoping to provide assistance. So let me walk you through some of the practical questions. Number one, who can apply? What entities are eligible for these assessment grants? So any county, municipality, city, local public authority can apply for these grants. You can have regional councils of government, regional planning agencies, redevelopment agencies, tribes, and a new element in the BUILD Act is that non-profit organizations are also now eligible to receive assessments and revolving loan grants. And so they have really expanded the scope of the eligibility of these grants. So what do you need to submit in order to apply for an assessment grants? There is a standard form for federal assistance, Form 424, which includes the administrative information and budget and so on. Then there is a cover letter, and then there is a 15-page of narrative proposal and ranking criteria that are used to judge the proposal. The threshold criteria responses essentially look at two items. So the one is applicant eligibility, whether the applicant falls in one of the categories that I mentioned before. And the second one is community involvement. So up front, the EPA looks at a summary of your plan to involve the community in the whole process of prioritizing and reusing brownfields. And if that summary does not adequately document that there is substantial community involvement, then the EPA will not even review the complete proposal. So you can see that community involvement is very, very important and central to this process. And then if you pass this threshold criteria, then your proposal is ranked for the full ranking criteria. And as you can see here, a lot of the things that appear here, environmental, social, financial needs, project description is what you're actually going to do, community engagement, all these things are similar compared to what Binu mentioned before for the DCD grants. So if you prepare an application for the EPA assessment grants, you will have done a lot of the legwork for the DCD grants as well. So after you have heard all of this, we'll go to the second question in the poll, whether you would be interested in applying for an EPA assessment grant. And yeah, Dave, if you can open the poll for this.
The results, I don't know if you can see them, Maria.
I cannot.
43% said yes, 17% said no, and 40% said not sure, need more information.
Okay, that's a pretty good percentage. So now I will turn over to the Connecticut Brownfields Initiative, and I will tell you how we can help you in preparing an EPA assessment grant. So what you see here is the landing page of our website, cbi.uconn.edu, cbi.uconn.edu. And as it says here, this initiative is an interdisciplinary training program that will teach students how to basically deal with brownfield development, but also we will work with students to support Connecticut municipalities in promoting grant applications and projects. And we have a variety of activities under CBI. So student training and the Brownfield Core that I will talk about in a second is one of them. But under Town Technical Assistance, we are planning to support grant applications, and also in the future as we grow, help you with project planning, serve as an information hub, and conduct more workshops and webinars. So part of our mission is to engage stakeholders across the state, both government at the state level, the municipal levels, as well as industry, and also create a workforce of students that understand brownfield redevelopment. So CBI is funded by both by DCD and a variety of private sponsors. So as you can see here, we have several different kinds of companies that are committed to brownfield development and that provide us both philanthropic support, so we are able to train our students and offer the municipal assistance program, but also critically, they provide mentorship and support in the program development. So we have both financial and technical support from our sponsors. So what is the Brownfield Core and how can this help you? So this is a year-long training program that the students are taking. So in the fall of 2018, the students will take a lecture that will involve understanding the A to Z's of brownfield development and working on an EPA grant proposal. So the course is being offered starting August. We have 36 students enrolled, and we have several different backgrounds. So engineering, science, history, political science, chemistry. So we have students that can really bring different expertise and interest to the table, which is, I think, necessary to be able to put together a successful proposal. After the fall semester, the students will continue to participate in a practicum and service learning course where again they will be working together with municipalities to promote brownfield projects. For example, help create reuse plans, conduct phase 1 investigations, and prepare remediation plans or support the preparation of remediation plans together with our sponsors and so on. So for the spring portion, we will have a separate RFP for interested municipalities. So for right now, we are focusing on the fall semester and the municipal assistance program for the EPA assessment grants. So that will actually go from August to the end of November, which is both the academic semester as well as approximately the deadline for the EPA community-wide assessment grant proposals. Okay, so what can you expect the students to do? What we will do is we will form groups of students. We will, like 4 or 5 students who will work with a particular community. And the students will help you prepare the narrative proposal, which is the bulk of the work, so the 15 pages of narrative, as well as the cover letter. So as you see here, it will be critical that there is an organic relationship and collaboration between the community and the students. And so part of the application will have to be prepared by the applicant, but the students will provide a lot of the legwork and narrative that you will need to submit the proposal. And we have actually gone through everything that is needed in the narrative proposal, and we will tell you what the students can do on their own, what you will have to supply, and where you will have to work together with the students to prepare the narrative. So in terms of the community need, which is part of the EPA proposal, the students can work on the community description, get your demographics, get an understanding of what the community makeup and needs are. And put together a table that EPA asks. Then for the description of the brownfields, the students can write the narrative, but we will clearly need some input from the town as to whatever it is that you know about brownfields and their current status. For the welfare, environmental, and public health impacts, again, the students will, of course, have some input from the community, but they will go out and interview people that they need to interview, go out to the public offices and get the information that they need, and we will help them to understand how they're going to put this together in a narrative that makes sense in terms of environmental, social impacts, and public health impacts. The same thing with the financial need. So for project description, the project description is essentially what I mentioned before. What are you going to do with the money? Phase 1, phase 2, revitalization plans, what it is that you want to do. What is going to be your strategy for this? So this is going to be a part where the community and our team will be working very closely together, because the community has to provide us with their vision and their need, the desires of what their objectives are for the community at the end of the grant. And then we will help with ideas, with feedback, and with actually putting this together in a compelling narrative, so that we put together the task descriptions. Community engagement. As you can see, a lot of colors here. This means that we will be working together to establish some relationships, and having the community spearhead this effort will be critical. However, once the community helps us do that, we will again take the pieces together and put them in a narrative that is actually makes sense and is what the EPA is looking for. And these are the last two sections of the EPA proposal. So one is the project benefits. Again, the students will help put that together, and then what the programmatic capability of the applicant is going to be mostly something that will have to come from the community per se. So, you might be wondering, well, how are the students going to do this, on their own? Well, they will not be on their own. We have a team of people that is supported by the Connecticut Brownfields Initiative, and that includes myself. We also have Dr. Nefeli Boboti, who's here with me. She's an assistant research professor in environmental engineering, and she will be one of the student mentors. We also have Bruce Hyde, who is with the Department of the Extension and CLEAR, and he has many years of experience as a planner, a land use planner in the state of Connecticut. And we also have several CBI partners, so DCD, Mark Lewis of DEEP, industry people. Everyone will be involved in training the students, have them understand how everything works, and mentor them in the process of writing the grants and pulling everything together. So you will really be getting not only the students, but also the collective technical expertise of the CBI team. So who can apply to the municipal assistance program? Well, anyone who is eligible for an EPA grant can also apply for the municipal assistance program. So municipalities, RPOs, redevelopment agencies, other nonprofits, so under the expanded eligibility of the BUILD Act, can apply to us as well. If you're not sure if you're eligible or not, contact us and we will talk to you and help you understand this and see if this is a good fit for you. So we would like to have a dedicated contact person from the applicant who will communicate with the staff and the students, and who will be available for periodic meetings and calls. We do have the ability to send the students out to the community to meet with you when necessary. We also would like the applicant to commit to provide the necessary access and resources needed to develop the proposal. For example, we will need access to town files and information, help with connecting students to the necessary departments to obtain data, and also to provide input on the technical aspects of the proposal. I apologize. For some reason, my computer keeps acting up and pausing this. It should be back on.
Back on, yep.
Okay, so, and finally, we want the contact person to commit to attend 2 lectures at UConn, where one will be in September to meet with the students and kick off the project, and one in November for the final presentations. How can you apply? There is an online form. If you go to cbi.uconn.edu, you will find a big button on there that says For Communities, and you will find a page that includes the full request for proposals, frequently asked questions, description of the program, and there is a Google form with very minimal information that we're asking you to provide to apply for this opportunity. What is our timeline? Well, today is the announcement on the RFP, and we will also be advertising this and circulating emails and probably through also mail to all interested entities in the state. And so the window of application is starting effective tomorrow and all the way to the end of July 31st. So in the first 2 weeks of August, we will conduct an initial review of the applications. If something is unclear, we'll communicate with the applicants to see if we need additional information and select the successful applicants by August 20th. I expect that we should be able to support somewhere in the vicinity of between 4 and 6 applicants, depending on how big the municipality is, what the needs are, and so on. And then on August 27th, the fall semester begins. On August 27th, the fall semester begins, and the student teams will be assigned to the towns. And by towns here, I mean any applicant or eligible entity. The EPA grant submission deadline is around November 15th, and so we expect that the students will have the proposal or the portion of the proposal that is their responsibility by that time. I also want to mention here that the proposal portion that the students will develop can be used also to develop a DCD proposal, and also can be used to develop other proposals. So these portions of community need, of all the background, they are common elements to pretty much any brownfield proposal. And so the benefit out of this, even if you do not end up winning the EPA assessment grant, which is, very competitive, it is that you will really have, done a lot of the legwork for any type of proposal that you want to submit. And, you may also meet bright students who are able to keep working with you and assist you with further development after they're done with that semester. Okay, so for more information for the Connecticut Brownfields Initiative portion, our website is cbi.uconn.edu. You can find a copy of this presentation on there. Once the recording of the webinar is available, a link to that will also be available. And the information with respect to DCD grants is under ctbrownfields.gov. And with that, I have one last poll question, and that is just to get an idea of if there is interest for the municipal assistance program. Dave, if you could open the poll for that.
So 35% said yes, they're interested in applying to the assistance program. 26% said no, and 39% said not sure, need more information. So.
And for more information.
Good program.
Sorry,
Go ahead, Maria.
So for more information, please reach out to me. My contact information is on the website cbi.uconn.edu, and you will find there both my phone number as well as a dedicated email address that we have, brownfields@uconn.edu. So please feel free to reach out and ask any questions you have, and we're happy to assist.
Okay, and so we do have a couple questions in here that I will relay to you. So the first one is, how do you overcome the objections of an administration that fears that admission of a brownfield within the community will have a negative effect on community growth? So I think basically the fear that if you say there is a brownfield in your community, that will impact interest in development.
How do you,
I think it's been changing. In recent, that fear has been reducing a lot, but definitely, brownfield owners do have that fear, and that is why we have the liability relief program, where once you get into that program, prospective purchasers they're only responsible for the cleanup within that brownfield and not for any contamination that goes beyond the site. So with such programs, I think the taboo is slowly going away. I know what you're talking about, whoever has posed the question. We do have a lot, when we try to get the inventory of brownfields, not many people come forward to declare that their site is a brownfield. It is a taboo, but because of these availability of our state programs and the liability relief program, this has vastly improved this particular notion about, brownfield is bad. In fact, with these programs, people want to show off their brownfields in a way, to show what the redevelopment potential and the potential for economic development in the state is. I don't know if you want to add, Maria, with your experience.
Yeah, so what I want to add is that especially these grants are, because the beneficiary is the municipality, that you have this, these sites are blight in your community. And so actually going after the assessment grants will vastly help redevelopment, because then you remove that uncertainty. So when you just leave that site and you don't know what you're dealing with, I think that causes an increase in being risk averse, that people do not want to touch a site where they have no idea what's going on. And whereas once you have at least done like a phase 1 or a phase 2 investigation, then you are in a so much better place, because if there is redevelopment potential, then if you know what you're dealing with, then the developer will roll that into the projection. So uncertainty and risk is the #1 fear, I think, behind this. This is why assessment is so important in moving these properties ahead.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next one, there's 2 questions along these same lines. This one says, engineering senior design student projects request sponsorship from the towns. Does your program look for this as well? And if so, what dollar amount? So does it cost anything to the community to participate in this program?
That's a great question, and I should have mentioned that. No, there is absolutely no cost at the municipality for this, and this is why we have sponsorship from the ECD and from a variety of industrial sponsors, as well as UConn. So all of the costs associated with this are covered by our sponsors. No cost to the municipality.
Great. Next question is, I am a consulting planner, not me, but the person asking the question, working for a council of governments for a community of 4,000 with a potential brownfield site. Are we eligible? I assume eligible for the student projects.
Yes, certainly. And especially, we really want to help smaller communities, because we understand that the smaller the community, the more strapped for resources they are. And so it's really one of our priorities to help communities that do not have a lot of resources.
Okay, and this is a follow-up question or comment regarding the fear. Once prospective purchasers see that the town is proactively pursuing, lots of P's in there, investigation, possibly assisting with cleanup efforts, this sheds a positive light on the issue. So I think that's someone addressing the earlier comment about concern about administrators supporting identifying brownfields.
Yes, I have to second that.
Then the last question so far, at least, is how do we get private brownfield landowners to support the town's desire to participate?
Oh, that is a great question. That is $1 million question, I think. Well, I think that liability relief that Binu mentioned before is the #1 strategy to support.
Yeah. Dialogue and communication. Bring them to the table, right? The local government or whoever is in charge, bring the brownfield owners to the table and discuss what can be done. I think that helps go a long way. And, make them partners in the whole brownfield redevelopment exercise. Don't treat them as the responsible party, but treat them as a partner for redevelopment. And once you do that, solutions automatically appear.
And it's a huge opportunity for the landowners too, isn't it? Because don't they get liability protection basically by entering a brownfields program?
Yes, it's a big, it's a big deal. So they don't have to, they're not responsible anymore for any contamination outside of the particular brownfield site. So we've been seeing a lot of interest in these liability relief programs, and, it goes a long way.
Okay, well, that's the last question that I see in our, oh, wait, here's one more. So the next question is, how do you get the private owner of the brownfield to agree with / support the efforts? Also explain the cost savings to them, as critical brownfield work will have been done at no cost to them if they are not in a position to contribute funds.
The private owner, again, the answer would be, bringing them to the table. And that's where the state and federal grants and all the various resources come in, because brownfield redevelopment is much more expensive than any other ordinary development. And where these resources come are the filling in the gap. The usual developer does not have any incentive to redevelop brownfields, but the state and the community have an incentive. So we get into the picture and we try and help fill in that financial gap. And brownfield redevelopment is not easy. It's not like a year 2 project. It's a long-term project. And when everybody puts in their resources and their heads, things happen. We make things happen.
I think there's 2 more things that the community can do, and one is to really highlight the value of a particular property beyond the potential risk of the brownfield, right? So if that property, there was no risk of contamination, what would be the value of that? And if they can have something like market research, something that shows essentially that, for example, you could have mixed use development there, and that, would generate, X amount of income. Once the community has some information like this that really highlights the attractive part of the property, and kind of like not focuses only on the ugly, then I think that's a very important way to convince people to come to the table.
That's a very important point. And many of these projects, they sometimes start with a market demand or a market analysis saying, what this land can be used for.
Yep.
Great. Well, those are all the questions that we have. Binu and Maria, I thank you both for presenting this excellent webinar. I think it's a great opportunity for communities who are looking to develop brownfields to contact you. And can you give us the website again, Maria?
Yep, cbi.uconn.edu.
Great, thank you. And as I mentioned in the beginning, this webinar was recorded. I will have the video posted hopefully by the end of the week. If not, then it will be up by the beginning of next week. And Maria will also post that on that cbi.uconn.edu website as well. So again, thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.